Hey, everybody. Hope you're getting signed on. I am pressed for time today, but I got a couple of minutes. I'm going to go get something to wet my whistle, and I will be back. Make sure we're all plugged in. I hope you enjoy the music. I hope your day has been fantastic, because regardless of the rushing, shout out to my wife for taking care of some things for me so I could be with you tonight in my comfort zone by getting some things ready. So we've only got a couple of minutes. I'm going to run. We will probably start 1 minute late, maybe two. I'll be right back. Got it smelling good as usual down here. Got some sea breeze incense going along with the brown sugar cinnamon wax candles. So when one runs out, the other one shall remain. I'll be right back. Love you. All right, folks. I just got told I got cut off. So I'm signing back on, and I'm not going to use any cameras other than this one. All right. Already done the introduction. I'm going to skip over that so I can get to this content I've got for you tonight. But what I really want to remind you, though, is we are wanting to do your stories, heroes and heroines that you are aware of, that you know of, people that you admire. And all I want is a picture and a first name. You send me a picture and a first name, and we're good. I don't use last names unless, of course, for some reason you would ask me to do that. But yeah, want to be able to do that for you. So anyway, I also want to remind you tonight that this is adult story time. This is not for the kids. This is for the adults. All right. So get the kiddies out of the room. Not going to say something that's gross, but I am going to say some things that are important. Now, one of the reasons why we have some of the situations that we have in the world right now is because of racism. And we had a storm today, by the way, and this always seems to happen when we have a storm. So anyway, and it is because one group wants to be superior of another, and there are pieces in history that people don't want folks to know. And I just want you to remember God's attitude that there is neither Jew nor Greek, there's neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for everyone is in Christ Jesus. If you have a relationship with him, then what he's asking you for is harmony. That we all work and live together and not be separate, right? In terms of how we feel about each other. Now, as I've said, the only difference between black folks and white folks is melanin. And God, who would God be to create one group more intelligent than another? I mean, it just seems like that would be common sense to me. But it's not common sense to everybody, right? That if we are believers, then we need to understand that there is equality in everything that God has done. And so tonight, we're going to take a look at some people that did great things in history, and we're going to let that be a blessing to us, all right? We're going to look at some great queens of Egypt. All but one is a warrior, our warrior queens. And so it's important for us to embrace this greatness, to understand it, no matter what your race is, but especially for the black folks to have a sense of pride, understanding that from the very beginning, God used people of color. There's a reason why many of these things have been held out of history. But tonight, what we're going to do is we're just going to enjoy things. Like Queen Yaninga, who started off as a princess. She was considered as the most beautiful woman in the kingdom. She was admired by her father as he noticed her riding skills. She was considered as one of the best riders, horse riders in the kingdom, as good as some of the men. Just an amazing woman with skills that were noticed by her papa. He realized that this girl has some abilities, and she also had skills with the bow and with the spear. As a warrior, she was amazing. And his noticing of that made him never want her to marry. He wanted her to, continue to be like his trusted ally and number one warrior, but she wanted to have a husband. So she made this field out of wheat, and she let the field rot. And the end result of that was, she had a discussion with her father about that. And she said to him, and I quote, "You see, Father, as precious as you say I am, still you let me rot like the wheat in the field." And so she ran away from him. Eventually, she ran away. And she created her own nation, which is Burkina Faso. Right? She moved on, so that she could eventually have a family. And so that's why she goes from princess to queen, because now she has her own nation, which exists today. She is the founder. Right? A great war. These are the daughters of kings that would go into battle that I'm showing you right now. I just could It's amazing to me. This lady, Queen Amina, she was something else, right? She led her troops into battle, right? She didn't just send them in. She led her troops into battle herself. And she wasn't just a great warrior, but she also was one of the first, or was the first, I'm sorry, to establish government among her people. This is around the 16th century, the House of Zazao. Yeah, right. Working with it the best I can. Um, and her grandfather saw her greatness when she was young, so he allowed her to attend state meetings. Now, for some of these folks, some of these nations, it was unusual for a woman to participate. Some, it was never an issue. But for some of them, it was unusual for a woman to participate in state affairs, to be there when these things happen. So it helps us to understand the level of greatness that must have been observed in these young women in order for a father, a grandfather, a relative that's in leadership to say, I want this person in the room when these things are happening and being decided. Right? And so she possessed both skills, and she is considered as the original warrior queen. And she accomplished quite a bit in her life. Let me show you this picture. It's just kind of, it was the north western part of Nigeria is where she was. All right. Moving right along, I'm going to go off camera just for a second. Oh, might not have to. This is Nefertiti. Now, Nefertiti, this is not about her being a warrior, but her leadership and management skills. Nefertiti ruled in Egypt with her husband, and let me read this name, Akhenaten. You catch me on another day and I say it right. Akhenaten. Anyway, he was the Pharaoh of Egypt. She ruled by his side. This is the wealthiest time in Egypt. The wealthiest time in Egypt. Gold and other riches. People were doing really well under her leadership. And that's one of the reasons why she's so famous. You know, sometimes people are like King Tut, whose picture is just up above me. One of the reasons why King Tut is famous, he died at about 19 years old, but it's because his tomb was intact. Many of the tombs were robbed, right? But Nefertiti is not famous just because, you know, you can still find, you know, likenesses of her. Nefertiti is famous because she brought prosperity to her people, and they held that prosperity together. Now, tonight is designed to be short. There's something very special that I want to get to. I actually own this book, but I just wanted to show you a picture of Chancellor Williams' book. Some of what I'm going to show you tonight comes from that particular book. So I wanted to make sure ahead of time that you were aware of where this information has come from, because there's some quotes that I'm going to read, and it's you know, a little unusual for me, but it's quite a bit of reading. This is the one I wanted to spend time on. I've written about her. I've read about her. This is Queen Anne Nzinga of Angola. A very, very special lady that accomplished a lot of things. I'm going to read some stuff to you, so I don't want to get too far along the way early. But her father would take her into battle at a very young age, skilled, you know, with the bow, skilled in warfare. And she was also a great ambassador. Just really didn't have, you know, fear issues and things like that. She wanted her people to be free. Okay? Now, this is during the time, there's a date there on the picture that's under me that lets you know what period of time this is. This is when the slave trade is high and at its height. And so to combat that, there are some things that this great warrior queen did that are huge and need to be, I mean, there's a movie that's been made about her, but beyond that, there's some things that people need to know this woman, because she stands out to me more than any other queen that has ever lived. That's how huge this is to me. I can't think of another queen even close to being like her. All right, listen to this. When a particular group or groups control any story, people can only act on what they have heard. When a story is told repeatedly, it begins to be accepted as true. For many years, Portuguese, Dutch, Spanish, English, and American documents wrote in their own way of how slaves were traded. The hunting parties that sought out black flesh like animals by the millions are not described in their barbaric cruelty. People were fleeing for their lives, trying to avoid capture. First quote, they were called white devils from the sea. They rounded up anyone with dark skin. African documents archived in Lisbon, covering some 500 years of history, paint a much different picture than the slavers, and many today wish to even know. All right, now, my name for these documents in Lisbon is, I just reverse it, I call them the Lisbon documents. And I'm going to show you some of the things that are from those documents and show you, some of the things that Queen Nzinga was doing. I mean, I just hope this blesses you the way that it blesses me. For every 2 million blacks enslaved, over 1 million died. I didn't tell you, this is part of my dissertation, so until I say the word quote, this is my writing. The record indicates rather clearly that millions prefer death to slavery. Now, I don't want you to miss that last piece. For every million that were caught, millions died. Right? We don't often talk about that part. If these numbers are accurate, it makes the number of black souls that died during slavery far exceed the 6 million other documents say perished. The following is an excerpt from the 500 African documents in the Lisbon archives. This is all them. This is a quote. Another problem was the large number of suicides during the 200-mile trek to the slave pens on the coast. The greatest number died from poison, which hundreds of women would conceal on their bodies for the purpose. Passing it to friends and kinsmen in the darkness of night, people giving it to their children and finally themselves. All this slowed us down during the night when we should have moved faster because it was cooler. Yet the dead and dying had to have their chains chopped off from the living. Many babies were deliberately smothered to death by their dying mothers. Don't hear that part of the story much, do you? I don't hear that part of the story very much. Let me tell you something else too. And this is a way of uplifting the Black woman. One of the things that I read in the Lisbon documents, I don't think it comes up tonight, is that the women were so loyal to their husbands that if you caught the wife, you didn't have to catch, if you caught the husband, you didn't have to catch the wife. That's why that scripture is down there at the bottom. Not good for a man to be alone. Well, these women were on another level. If you caught the husband, as a matter of fact, they didn't even have to chain them up. Now, this isn't every situation. You got mothers here that are committing suicide, women that are committing suicide, women that are killing their own babies so they don't have to end up in slavery. You have those kind of things going. But there are also situations where these women were so loyal to their men that if you caught the man, she would. They said she would follow him. They believed she would follow him into hell. They didn't even have to chain them. Now, I don't know how you're receiving that, but that makes the Black woman really special to me. That level of loyalty. I hope you listen to me. Let me keep going. Williams, author I told you about, shares that not only were there Blacks that did not participate in the slave trade, but there were those who actively fought to save their people. None of the Black royalty showed more of a vehement desire to see slavery end than the master strategist Queen Nzinga. The great exploits of this female general who frustrated the Portuguese for 40 years until she passed in 1660 through until she passed in 1663 at age 80. Although there is a statue standing in her honor in Luanda, Angola, most are unaware of her accomplishments for Black people. The lives she saved from forcible servitude or death. Well, the following account is from those same documents that I was talking about. Listen to this. We work in fear, for our guns are often useless in the increasing number of ambush attacks along these death-ridden trails. And while the Congolese kings now harass us in their attempts to check the spread of slavery, the real danger is in the Angola region. Here she comes. The region of the Black Terror, which is capitalized, in the form of death-defying Black Queen Anne Nzinga. Whoever heard of a woman general leading her armies in person? The truth is that she is the greatest military strategist that ever confronted the armed forces of Portugal. Her tactics keep our commanders sweating in confusion and dismay. Her aim is nothing less than total destruction of the slave trade. To this end, and what alarms us most, listen, she developed a system of infiltrating our Black troops with her own men, causing whole companies to rebel, desert, and join her armies in what she called a war of liberation. Portuguese casualties are always heavier than reported, for she stages surprise attacks with lightning speed, always aiming first to capture guns and cannons. And while we are now surrounded ourselves with armed guards on these long marches, we never know how many of our Black soldiers are the queen's own men. Here's another thing that she would do. The guides that they would use to get them back to the shore were often her people, leading them in the wrong direction or killing them as they slept at night. Can I say praise God? So let me do this. Let me show you this. I hope that's clear for you. So Queen Nzinga had this meeting with a Portuguese ruler. And she walks into the tent where he is. And he's sitting on something that looks like, like a minor throne. And there's nowhere for her to sit other than on the carpet in front of the throne, or to sit on the ground or to stand. And so what she decides to do to show her power and her strength, she calls one of her soldiers in. He gets on all fours, and she, throughout the entire meeting, sits on his back. You're not going to, just basically showing, you're not going to demean me. He ends up leaving frustrated because he doesn't get what it is he wants from her anyway. And based on that, many of the people that would have come from Angola to America, to Europe as slaves, did not because of her efforts. And to this day, it is an absolute blessing that she did what she did to protect her people and for them to become what today is a prosperous nation. We had some glitches tonight. So sorry about that. But I'll make sure this gets posted on Facebook and on YouTube the way that it should be. But I'm hoping this is just the beginning. It's not like I'm highlighting. This was 4 of them, right? I'm not done just with the queens from that time. Sure, we'll end up with Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and other folks that have done great things, but and all the way to today. But man, there's so many people that are buried in history that we don't even know that many people don't know that they existed. Queens, Black kings. Right now, we're just starting with the queens and their accomplishments. Hey, short tonight. I'll get some of the other stuff cleaned up. This is Pastor Jackie Jackson. I want to